This changes everything for the Steelers as they get some new news on TJ Watt's contract extension. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers analysis and reports regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. As the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ Watt continue their negotiations, some new news has dropped regarding this extension. Before we get into the latest reports, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, just click that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. But like I said, we have gotten some new news about the TJ Watt contract extension. Obviously, TJ Watt is probably the best player on our team at the moment, has been the best player on our team since 2017 when he was drafted, only has continued to get better. You know, last year he was dealing with some injuries, and there was some games where he did kind of not really show up, but I still continue to believe in this guy, and I do think he's going to have a bounce-back season next year once we do get this contract extension done. But, some new news regarding the contract extension. Mike Florio appeared on 93.7 The Fan and did have some news regarding this extension. Full guarantee and injury guarantee are two different things. Florio explained the number that always gets put out there is the maximum total injury guarantee. The real guarantee is less than that. Myles Garrett did get a lot of money this offseason. He got $40 million guaranteed, and the Browns, they padded his pay and, ensured that he does stay in Cleveland for the rest of his career. So hopefully the Steelers will do the same with TJ Watt. Unfortunately with TJ, he is getting up there in age. He will turn 31 on October 11th. So, age is definitely a factor in this contract extension. But I do think eventually the Steelers will get this done. Florio did continue to say, it's easy for the Pittsburgh Steelers to do. They could do $60 million guaranteed and beat Myles Garrett with that number. But, obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers do not have a ton of money to dish out, and it really comes down to whether or not they do want to allocate all of this guaranteed money to TJ Watt, and whether or not they do want to extend him for a long period of time. I think there's also a big discrepancy between the Steelers and TJ Watt. The Steelers are probably offering TJ probably a 2 to 3 year deal, but TJ Watt may want more or less than that. If TJ decides, hey, I want this to be my last contract, he could be looking for like 4-year extension, to have him play to his 34-year-old age season. But I do think if we did do that, it would be smart for the Pittsburgh Steelers because we are continuing to add depth behind TJ and continuing to pad our roster. But, if we do look at TJ's stats from the past couple seasons, last year he had 11.5 sacks. The year before that, he had 19 sacks. Before that, he was injured for a majority of the season with a torn pec, but he still recorded 5.5 sacks. And if we do go back to 2021, dude won Defensive Player of the Year with 22.5 sacks. Should have broke Michael Strahan's single sack record with a sack on Ravens backup quarterback Tyler Huntley, but obviously the NFL does not want the Pittsburgh Steelers to win, and they did not record that as a sack. But TJ Watt has been in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year since, 2020, I believe, maybe even 2019. This guy has continued to put up multiple sack seasons, has been a game changer on our defense. It only takes 1 or 2 plays for TJ Watt to totally flip a game, whether that is a forced fumble, strip sack, a touchdown, an interception. TJ Watt's always around the football, and he's always making plays. This guy also records interceptions. A few years ago, I believe it was 2022 or 2023, this guy had an interception where he dropped back into coverage against the LA Rams. Really uncharacteristic for TJ Watt, but it just shows that he can play everywhere on the defense. He can line up at that defensive end, outside linebacker position, and rush the passer, but he can also drop back into zone coverage and pick off some passes and, run around and play some hard-nosed football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, behind him, we do have a lot of depth, and that's something that, I think is really holding the Steelers back from paying TJ Watt a ton of money outright, because we do have little TJ in Nick Herbig, obviously a guy we drafted out of Wisconsin 2 years ago, who's continued to thrive every time he's on the football field. I believe his rookie year, he had 3.5 sacks with 2 or 3 forced fumbles. And last year, he had 5.5 sacks with, I think, 4 forced fumbles. And this dude's only continuing to get better as he hits the field. He's never even been a starter on defense. So, if TJ decides, hey, I want to sit out until I get paid, I do think Nick Herbig would be a perfect complement to play in his absence. This guy, he's still young. He's got a lot of TJ's moves in his, arsenal. And this guy has only continued to develop. So I really do like Nick Herbig. If we unfortunately decide to move on from TJ Watt, or TJ Watt decides to sit out for some part of the season, I do think Nick Herbig's going to play great in his relief. And, other than Nick Herbig, we do have another guy that we drafted this draft in Captain Jack Sawyer. Captain Jack Sawyer is coming off a national championship win. This dude's huge. He's 6'4", 260. Even bigger than TJ Watt, but obviously size and strength is not the only factors in making a good football player. But I do think Jack Sawyer is going to be another great addition that the Pittsburgh Steelers did make this offseason. I do think this guy is going to continue to develop under Mike Tomlin's defense and really show that he's going to be a great addition to our team. He made a great play in the national championship with a strip sack for a touchdown. And I do think with the right coaching, with the right exposure, and with the right veterans like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig, this guy is going to develop into a future star. But, there's still a lot of question marks around Jack Sawyer. Obviously, he still hasn't even played a down in the NFL, hasn't played a preseason down. But this dude's got all the intangibles, got the leadership skills, got the wins for it. And I do think with the right development, we can develop this guy into another great Pittsburgh Steelers pass rusher. But, going back to TJ Watt and his situation, I do think that Steele will evidently get done. Just give it some more time. The Pittsburgh Steelers do like to make a lot of their moves during training camp or right before training camp. If you look back a few years ago at Cam Heyward's extension, that was done, I believe, right before training camp or during training camp, where, Cam Heyward was doing a similar thing where he wasn't showing up. He wasn't participating because he wanted to get paid. And obviously, TJ Watt does deserve an increase in pay. This dude's only getting paid $28 million a year compared to guys like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett, who are getting $40 million plus this offseason, who are debatably not even better players than TJ Watt. If we look at the stats from the past couple years, TJ Watt has beat both Max Crosby and Myles Garrett across the board. Since coming into the league, this guy's been the best defensive player in the draft of 2017. I really don't think there's really anybody close to him, and I think he does deserve to get paid, but it really is only a matter of time before the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ Watt gets this extension done, because obviously TJ wants to retire in Pittsburgh. We want him to retire in Pittsburgh, and the con artists and Coach Tomlin do want him to retire in Pittsburgh as well. Unfortunately, that is all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers.